And now, a special presentation from the USAVideoNetwork.com, Victims of Crime. This is episode 2 of the Richard Straub story. This episode is based on an article sent in by Sarah Miles, Hartford County, Connecticut, USA. The title here is The Hitman and the Girl. As you may remember, episode 1 told of Richard Straub, a state of Connecticut probation officer convicted of 210 counts of rape and sexual assault. He would force young boys entrusted to his care to have sex with him. This episode, episode 2, tells of the continuing story of Richard Straub after he was sent to prison. A few months into his prison sentence, Richard Straub and his brother, Roland Straub, were convicted of conspiracy to escape from prison and attempted murder. Richard Straub was a wealthy man, and he was paid a $3,000 per month state pension even while he was in prison. His brother, Roland Straub, who was a free man, got large amounts of money from Richard. The large amounts of money were used to bribe prison guards who were willing to help in Richard Straub's escape. Large amounts of money were also used to pay a hired killer to kill a state prosecutor, the same state prosecutor that sent him, Richard Straub, to prison for 15 years. The main city newspaper of Hartford, Connecticut, USA is the Hartford Courant. They have a free online database which may be available through your state library. They and other online media sources have 32 detailed articles. They describe the attempted escape and the hitman, the killer, hired to kill the state prosecutor. During the time Richard Straub was in prison, Sarah Miles was a runaway. Her dad was a policeman in Hartford County, Connecticut, USA. Sarah was wanted for felony charges, passing bad checks, felony hit and run, and possession of pharmaceutical painkillers. She could easily pass for 21 years of age or older. If needed, she could pass for a most attractive person. She fell in love with the drugs that so easily killed the mental pain and torment she often experienced, and easily made an entrance into the beginning stages of the sex trade. This anonymous representing image of her likeness is a close parallel to her appearance. The sex trade was almost easy, at least at first. She learned of her power over men and how she could utilize her appearance to get anything she wanted. During this time, Sarah's older brother was convicted for armed robbery and sent to prison. By chance, he was sent to the same prison as Richard Straub. Straub knew her brother had a long history of criminal violence, and in the beginning approached him about the contract hit to kill the state prosecutor that had sent him to prison. In the weeks to come, Sarah was contacted by her brother in prison, the only reliable person he knew. A meeting was set up for Sarah to meet with Roland Straub. At the meeting, Sarah secretly showed Roland Straub her father's massive firearm collection, which included a .50 caliber Army machine gun and 2 grenade launchers, complete with a box of Army-issue grenades. Sarah was a most convicting and irresistible presence. The deal was made for the contract murder, $250,000 with $125,000 up front. They would meet again in a week. Then both would take off to Mexico after the contract hit was fulfilled. Sarah remembers her dealings with Roland Straub in the following weeks. He had brought the money as agreed. Sarah could barely lift the knapsack that held all the money. It was all in 20s and 50s. The pile of money Roland Straub dumped in front of her was unbelievably huge, far more than she had ever seen in her life. Richard Straub was a wealthy person. His relatives were even more wealthy. The newspapers described this in detail. Relatives of Richard Straub put up huge amounts of cash for his bond when he was first arrested. The chief court clerk said the following people contributed to Straub's bond. Mitchell Pariah of Danielson contributed $355,000 cash. Donald and Barbara Ladd of Hampton contributed $250,000 cash. Roland Straub of Groton, his brother, contributed $240,000 in cash. Dennis Straub of Danielson, Connecticut, contributed $55,000 cash. There was also Fred Straub, his brother, of Niantic, Connecticut, who contributed $40,000 cash bond. Sarah had also convinced Roland to borrow more money from his relatives, convincing them it was for lawyers' fees for Richard's appeal in appellate courts. Both Sarah and Roland would use the extra money to live in style in Mexico, then in Rio de Janeiro, South America. Needless to say, Sarah was never seen again. She easily hit Roland over the head with a champagne bottle. Then, tying him up, she left with the original $125,000 cash and the extra $125,000 cash Roland had borrowed from the wealthy relatives. She never intended to fulfill the original contract. She was last seen heading for British Columbia, Canada, in a stolen 1969 Chrysler Newport. Sarah was 15 years old. The rest of the story is, of course, history. Roland tried to find and pay another hitman for the job. The hitman was a police informant. They all got caught. Roland got sent to prison along with his brother Richard. This concludes the presentation from the USAVideoNetwork.com Victims of Crime. Send in your stories for publication. I thank you.